Hi, I'm Krista West of Avlea Folk Embroidery, and this is the December FlossTube. So, whew, can we all just like take a breath? Because, wow, I feel like this time of year is so busy in a really great way, but it just, there's a lot that we have extra to do if we are really into like decorating or hosting or things like that. And they're all really joyful things, but I do feel like, whew, sometimes it's just like, wow, I've got to really like manage that to-do list. So anyways, and I do think a part of that is also letting go of some things. So more on that later. So for those of you who are new, I'm Krista West. I am the designer and owner of Avlea Folk Embroidery. And my whole thing is Mediterranean folk embroidery. Well, now, not just Mediterranean, Latvian, Ukrainian, Baltic, all the things. So all folk embroidery all the time. I guess if we were like a 1980s radio channel, we'd be all folk embroidery all the time. So anyways, do you guys remember when radio was like that? Some of you are probably way too young, but still. So I want to share with you today what's going on at Avlea, but before I start, I thought I'll just go through all the reminders. All this stuff will be in the comments, but you can find all of my designs at www.avleaembroidery.com. That's the Avlea website. If you want to be notified when I'm running specials or have new releases or just kind of join me along my creative journey, then sign up for the emails. You just go to the homepage of Avlea and then just scroll to the bottom and there's the little box, like there is, and you just put in your email. And I usually send an email about once a week. It usually goes out Saturday mornings, and it's just maybe what I'm working on, if there's something new, maybe something I'm excited about, that kind of a thing. So, although I say that now and then I'm probably going to take the week off of maybe Christmas Eve. I don't know, I'll have to see. Maybe I'll just do like something really, really short over the holidays. So, what is going on here at Avlea? Oh, and then the other thing I forgot to mention is Instagram. So because I'm one person, I do not have a social media person. That would be me. And, as a small business owner wearing all the hats, I've had to be kind of choosy about where I put my energy into social media. So most of my social media energy goes on Instagram. That's where I post most of my photos. I share in the stories things that I'm like working on. And that can be kind of fun. That's very like behind the scenes. Like today I'll show you the new hoop kit, and it won't release till probably next February, but at least you kind of get to see it before it like releases, which is really, really fun. And I'll talk a little bit about that process. But so I'm not very active on Facebook, only because I just find the platform really overwhelming. So I tend to be more on Instagram, and I'm just now starting to figure out Pinterest. I use Pinterest. I actually really like Pinterest myself, like to create boards and think about ideas and things like that. I'm just still figuring out like how do I share Avlea designs on Pinterest. So still figuring that out. As much of this process of owning a very small embroidery company has taught me, a lot of this is just figuring things out as I go along. So Instagram, my handle is kristamwest. And of course you found me on YouTube. So let's talk about embroidery. This month has been, the last few weeks have been really different for me than I expected in terms of my own stitching. I just finished Scrolled Leaves, so let's talk about that. So Scrolled Leaves is on the Windowpane fabric that I've talked about in a couple of YouTubes, FlossTubes lately. And it is a really fabulous fabric. I'm going to get in really close. It's a fabric in which there is machine-made drawn thread hemming. And I'm going to actually get pretty close on that. I have a new camera. I'm super excited about it. A new phone. I have a new phone with a new camera. Wow, so much excitement. We can talk about that later. But I'm going to get really close in there. So you can see this drawn thread work is done like entirely by machine. It's just woven in there, which is super cool. And it's one way this way. And then when you get into the other way, other direction, it's just slightly different, but super cool. So what it does is it gives you all of these little squares that you can stitch a motif in. And so I had set this up to stitch just so that I could like show how you use the window pane fabric. And then I got going with it and it was like, wait, I want this for my entryway table. My entryway table is kind of long. So I'm like, this was a bit of a commitment. So this took a lot longer than I expected because like one that's like this size, but this is 4 motifs across and I think 8 down. Yeah, 8 down. This is a half-yard piece. This is actually also is the kit now. So now you can either buy the window pane fabric like by the yard, so you can decide what size you want, or you can buy it as a kit with like all the floss and everything and the pattern and all of that. So it's totally up to you. But I'm really looking forward to playing around more with the window pane fabric. The mill in Greece that I get this from actually just put a whole new batch into production. And partly because we were ordering it, which is really exciting. And they even reached out to me and said, is there anything you want changed? Anything you want different? And I'm like, no, just leave it as it is. I just finished stitching the sample. Please don't change anything because like, oh my word. So this actually was 25,000 stitches. It's a lot of stitches. But I found myself turning to it over and over again because it's so like, it was very meditative. So while I was in the middle of the thank you sale last month and just, you know, starting to get busy for the holidays and thinking about my Christmas shopping, all that kind of stuff, it was really great to have this as a project because I could just sort of work at it a little bit by little bit. So anyways, and then I put it on my entryway table with these little vintage brass angels I have that like are old candle holders. I just love those. So I've been like combing thrift stores for years now, and I now have like a really great collection of them. And so I have them there with my poinsettia. And I think what I really liked about this piece is that I can use it during the rest of the year and it doesn't scream Christmas, but at Christmas time it's like, oh, it looks like you made it for Christmas. I love pieces like that because I like things that I can have out and like style different ways. I think this is also gonna look amazing in the spring and summer with roses on it. Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. We have these really beautiful cream roses in our yard. They're for those of you who are rose aficionados, they are Jude the Obscure roses, which are an heirloom rose. Super cool. Anyways, and that will look beautiful in spring. So very versatile. Watch for more window pane fabric. I probably on the next ones will not make one that big. I'll probably do like smaller samples to give an idea. And I've been thinking too about maybe doing a pattern that has like 3 or 4 motifs that you could use for window pane fabric so that you kind of get all of that in one pattern. So it's on my design list. Then next up, what this month was BitKit Scandinavian Stars. I think of it as BitKit Scandi now. Because when you have to type out Scandinavian Stars a whole bunch of times, you do start thinking, why did I choose a name that long? Although you could probably say that about almost all of my designs. They all have really long names. But I feel like the name is so important to the design that it really evokes what it is. But this one has a very, very cool backstory. So I regularly hunt around on used book sites and things like that for old vintage needlework booklets. I have a small but growing collection of all different sorts of old vintage needlework booklets. I just love them. I love seeing what people were making, you know, 70, 80, 90 years ago. And those designs, oftentimes I'll see like a motif that I might have seen someplace else, but like I might see it in the needlework booklet or whatever. And this one was so interesting. It was a vintage Swedish needlework booklet that I found on a used bookstore site that I use. But what was funny was that this Swedish needlework booklet, it was all in Swedish, so I couldn't exactly tell, but judging from the little bit of Google Translate that I was actually able to enter in and figure out the Swedish, it was an issue that was dedicated to folk embroidery around the world, which was so cool. So there was a Balkan piece in there and a Greek piece and a Latvian piece and all that kind of stuff. So this little star motif was in there and I just thought it was so charming. And for those of you who saw my other December release, which is Sea of Light, which I don't have, unfortunately. I mean, the good news is that it's on display actually at the local art center. It was accepted into the winter art show here. So I don't have it to show you. It's super awesome. If you want to see it, just go back, scroll through Instagram because I like literally have a gazillion photos of it on Instagram because I love it so much. But I got going with that blue color theme, blue palettes on the new white traditional ground cloth, and I kind of just couldn't stop. So that's the BitKit Scandi Stars. Super cute. Also, stitches super fast. I want to say it's right around like 2,400 stitches. So it's really small, very fast, really cute. Anyways, feels like snowflakes, feels like winter, very fun. So, and then this last month, one of the things that I did, now that I'm learning to use my new camera, as all of you who have followed that journey, Krista's photography journey, which is not nearly as illuminating and exciting and encouraging as Krista's embroidery journey. For those of you who have not followed along, Krista's photography journey has involved a lot of tears. A lot of tears, a lot of stamping, a lot of frustration, possibly some 4-letter words too. Because I had maybe owned a camera before I started Avlea, but I had no clue how it worked. And I have never been one of those people who run around taking pictures of my kids. I have face blindness, so photos are kind of tricky for me because I don't always remember who's in the photo. I recognize my own family, thank goodness, but like other people, it's like, who's that person? No idea. So, but as soon as I started Avlea, I realized, oh, wait, this photography thing is a big deal. So I was like, great, I'll find somebody to photograph. And I found a wonderful young photographer, but she didn't stitch. And she didn't really know like what she was looking for in terms of the stitching. And I realized, oh, wait, maybe you did need to know how to stitch to like take the photos. So that was when I kind of realized, oh, I might just have to learn how to do this photography thing myself. So that's like a whole lot of like backstory here. But over the last few weeks, I've gone back over some of our earlier designs, and I have either edited the photos to make them a little bit brighter and truer to the fabric color, because you're gonna laugh, but in the early days, I didn't even know you were supposed to edit a photo. I had no idea. I just thought I honestly just thought the natural light was just what it was, and that was as good as it got. I had no idea you could edit photos. Like, for a long time, like maybe till last year. So I went back in, and a lot of the older designs that are really fabulous designs, but had sort of meh photos, I went in and either tuned up the photos or I reshot new photos for them. For some of them, I needed to do that. But there were a couple of standouts when I was doing that I kind of wanted to just share with you that are really cool pieces. And plus, these are really neat because my daughter stitched them, not me. So Macedonian Birds is the first one. This is a beautiful historic design. I found the original kind of inspiration for this in a vintage needlework booklet, but I've seen it in numerous books on folk embroidery. This sort of the bird motif with the flowers coming up into a serrated carnation is very, very common throughout folk embroidery on bed valances and bed tents, things like that. Some cushion covers, but mostly things that like drape down like a valance, because you have this like really fabulous like design space that's really perfect for birds. But one of the things I particularly like about this design is the border. The outer border is just fabulous. It's got a little kind of mini, it's kind of like a little mini half checkerboard with this really fabulous triangular border, which I really love. Now she worked this on the Legacy Linen Coconut Macaroon. I have just a small amount left of that fabric, and I've been parceling it out between this kit and the Miriam's Garden and maybe one other one that I can't think of right now. And so when that's gone, it'll be gone because they're not making it anymore. And it's like a really hefty 30 count linen. Oh, and then also too on this one, you'll notice that she worked a double drawn thread hem. I don't know if you can see that, but she worked the drawn thread hem on both sides to give that really strong bar effect. So anyways, so my daughter Nora stitched this. This was quite a few years ago, but this is a really neat design. And then the other one that she stitched, which I love, which is also on Legacy Linen, because these were the early days when we were both like discovering folk embroidery, and the Legacy Linen was all that I had. I didn't know that there were other linens that you could stitch on. And this is the Athenian Compass. And this is a classic, and this also has a double drawn thread. I'm going to get a little closer so you can see that design. Really, really classic arrow design, compass and arrow design. These kind of all over motif repeats. This kind of embroidery is so common throughout Greece. And when I say this kind, I mean something that's like a table runner size and that has an all over repeat design. These are super common in Greece. And this has a really classic color palette of black, red, and gold and olive. So very, very, really super straight up traditional, this one. So those I rephotographed, let's see, this one I rephotographed, Macedonian Birds I rephotographed. That felt really great. to get that done. But in addition to that, I have more things I want to share with you. So I got some of the photography done. It was kind of nice. I've had, over the last couple of weeks, I've had a little bit of a breather since the thank you sale wrapped up in November. And I've really been trying to take a pause and be like, okay, what are the things on the website that need to be tuned up? So this is the time. If there's anything you've noticed on the website that is an error or is misleading or confusing, please let me know. Like, I had no idea until last week, until I looked into it. My little video on how to unwind a floss hank was on the app, but not on the website. And I suddenly just discovered that. So I corrected that. But if there's any questions or things like that, I can add an FAQ. But yeah, if there's anything that you feel like, but that the last couple of weeks have been my time to kind of go through older designs, tune them up, because it's one of the really great things about folk embroidery is that it is seasonless. I mean, clearly we have things that we can use at like Christmas time and things like that. But for example, if you look on my Instagram feed this week, I showed the Byzantine Zoe pattern, and I use that both at Christmas and then I use it again at Easter. So I set that out 2 different times of the year. So it's one of the things that I really love about folk embroidery is that it's not tied to a specific season. And I like that you can kind of, they're very, very flexible and very adaptable. So because of that, my work is different than a lot of embroidery designers because I'm never really designing for a holiday or an upcoming season or a trend. I'm actually kind of going in the reverse. I'm driving in reverse. And so while everybody else is out there like doing new things and new trends and things like that, I'm kind of just going backwards and kind of mining history for kind of bringing back old designs, old motifs, things like that. So it's kind of fun because it means that once I put the time and energy into something, it's just going to kind of live at the Avlea website forever and ever. And I'm sure I've mentioned it in other FlossTubes, but my really eventual goal for the Avlea website is that it really becomes this encyclopedia of folk embroidery and that we can keep adding to it over the years, and it will help retain the whole craft of folk embroidery. So along those lines, what else is new? Let me look at my list. I have to like keep a list now. Okay, so we went over the, oh, I know. I did just release 2 new pomegranate collection patterns. And for those of you who are like, what's a pomegranate collection? So I design I try to sit down and do a design session at least every week or every other week. And I do this not because I necessarily need to create that many designs to release every year, but I need to keep my hand in, so to speak. And it helps me stay current with all of my own personal study of folk embroidery. So I'm studying old needlework booklets, I'm studying old books, things like this, to really look at the stitches, and then I need to play with them. Like in my charting software, I use WinStitch, which I actually really, really love. And I need to kind of look at how they look when they repeat and what happens when you put it in a square and what happens if you do that. So all that to say, I end up creating a lot more designs. And some designs I create them and I'm like, ooh, I love this, but like maybe it's got a lot of stitches, or maybe I'm not certain about the colorway. And I'm like, well, I'd like a way to kind of test this out first. So what I've started doing, I started this about 1.5 years ago. There's a section of the website called the Pomegranate Collection. These are $5 download patterns. And why are they different? Because they do not have a stitch sample. So it's a design that I've charted and created, but I haven't stitched a sample yet. And I put it out on the Pomegranate Collection because I want to see like how many people actually buy that download pattern. How much interest is there in that? For example, Penelope's Garden to this day is probably our most popular Pomegranate Collection design. It's 35,000 stitches. And we actually have people asking for kits for it. So I've had to release a kit version literally because so many people are interested in it. And that's on my stitch list for like this year. I'm like, okay, there's enough interest in that. I really need to go ahead and stitch that and get a sample going so that we can offer it as a kit. But these other designs, I'm like, I just don't know. I love it, but what do other people think? So each one of these has the full size chart as the close-up, or as the cover image. And then it's just like the Avlea pattern. The rest of them, it has the close-up chart, and then it has the full-size chart. This is so this one's called Priscilla. This is also, the motif is the same motif that is in my BitKit Byzantine Star. But the BitKit Byzantine Star just has 2 motifs. And for this one, I've turned it into an all-over design, which would be beautiful as a cushion cover. You could also reorient it and make it a table runner, like scrolled leaves. It would be beautiful. Ooh, now that I'm looking at that, I believe you probably could even take this motif here and you could probably put it in the window pane fabric. It would probably work. I think it's the right stitch count. I'm looking at it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I think it would fit. This is 50 by 50 stitches. So you have to just make sure that whatever motif you put in there is less than that. So that'd work here. But then I added this really kind of cool little outer border. I'll show you that. I was kind of pleased with the little outer borders, like these little outline diamonds. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. So Priscilla is the newest one of the Pomegranate collection. And then there's another one called Latvian Stars, which is, let me show you the close-up of that. It's this total like 8-pointed star fantasia. It's got like all this 8-pointed star love and action going on. So much 8-pointed star. And then the 8-pointed stars are repeated to like create these super amazing borders. And then even like these like cross motifs are created with portions of the 8-pointed star. And it's got really great sawtooth edging. Again, huge design. So I wasn't certain like if that would be very popular because it's, how many stitches is it? It's 30,000. It's a commitment. But very, very cool. So, and I'm working on some more things. I've got a Byzantine border design that I absolutely love that I've been working on and trying to perfect for the last probably 6 months. And so that should be going up fairly soon. And probably another few things going to the Pomegranate collection. Because on those larger designs, I want to get a feel for like, are people interested in these? And I totally get the fact that the larger designs are not for everyone. Not everybody wants to stitch something that's 35,000 stitches. It can be a lot. But, so, Pomegranate collection. Now, next up, very excited about this one. Oh, I forgot to grab the original. I don't know where the original is. So, about 1.5 years ago, I got a little vintage embroidery. I got it off of Etsy. And it was this little teeny tiny table mat. But it had this, and it was on like kind of this very dark needlepoint canvas. So it wasn't the most pleasing embroidery, but it had this super cool design that just like, oh my gosh, it just called to me like across Etsy. It was like, Krista, take me away. I'm like, okay. So I got that little design and it's been on my design board for like the longest time. And I finally got around to charting it and working it through. And so I'm really excited. I probably am not, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to release this, but probably sooner rather than later because I love it so much. So this is golden celandine. Celandine, the flower called lesser celandine is a type of golden poppy that grows all over the Mediterranean. And this one has these little tiny poppy designs right here. If you can see them in here, are these little poppies. So I decided to use that. Plus I just love the name Celandine. I just think it sounds super cool. So, oh my word. This was one of those ones that as soon as I was like right about in here and I had just gotten this section of the design done, I got that whole like shivery feeling like, oh yeah, this is a good one. And it was so much fun to stitch. This is on the 30 count vanilla Greek linen. And I wasn't certain how the 733, the like golden olive color was going to work. It works beautifully. I love that kind of almost brass quality to it. And then the little highlights of the navy and the like bright bluey green. I mean, I just love this. I love this design and I keep trying to figure out kind of why I like it. But I think why I like it is the contrast. I feel like you have this super strong, extremely geometric outer border, very much right angles. It reminds me of galloon trim. So like the, I don't have what, here's one. So like the trim that we use on vestments, Greek Orthodox vestments, it's like that. So it has that affinity. But I love that that border is combined with this incredibly delicate, this really cool meander, which is great. But I feel like what really makes the design sing is this incredibly delicate outer border and the way it pierces the outside of it, but then it's also on the inside. I don't know. Pamela and I are just geeking out over this one. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And it's not that many stitches. Like I think I whipped this up in about 2 weeks. It didn't, I mean, yes. For those of you who hear me say how long it takes to stitch something, you do have to remember that I stitch every day. usually for at least 3 hours. So I stitch a lot. So don't be concerned about that. If I say that something took me 2 weeks, just double it. Probably might take you 4 weeks if you don't stitch, you know, or whatever. I should almost try and figure out like an hourly rate, because that would be helpful too. But everybody stitches at a different rate. So I just love to stitch. But this one also too, like sometimes when I get a design like this one and I'm like, I love it, I love it, I love it, I just like can't put it down. I'm like, oh, do we really need to eat tonight? I don't think so. I think we just can have popcorn and have a slice of cheese and popcorn for dinner. Good, because that means I can stitch more. Or I'll be stitching on it and my husband will come in and he'll be like, do you want me to make dinner tonight? I'm like, yeah, I'd really like you to make dinner tonight. So because I just want to like work on this. Anyways, and I feel like this one too would be really adaptable to a different size, but there's something really cool about this size. I feel like it's just the right balance of like this strong geometric border with like the delicate border. I feel like if you stretched it out anymore, I don't know, I'm not certain it would work. So maybe this one isn't super adaptable. But anyways, very excited about this one. I'm going to be releasing a couple of new table runners in the first part of next year. So this is going to be one of them. Very fun. Golden Celandine. So also releasing next year in terms of like table runners is the Thracian Forest, and I'll just kind of give you a quick sneak peek at this one. This was a design that I did for Taproot magazine last year, and it will come off copyright from Taproot in, I think, February. So this will be one of the designs that is released next year too, that we can then have on the Avlea website. Right now it's only available at Taproot. And that's actually great. I mean, those partnerships are really great because it means that I can make kits. But that's how that often works as a designer. You have like a limited use. The person who's like, if you're writing for a magazine or an organization or something, they'll have a limited use copyright. So they can use it for either an issue or so many months. And in Taproot's case, it really benefits both of us because that design went to them and they bought a certain number of kits that they've sold in their online store and in their little shop in Maine, which actually, if you don't follow them on Instagram, their stuff's really cool. And their shop just looks adorable. I want to go to Maine and like go into their shop because their shop just looks really neat. But when they do that, then I design that for them and I do all that work. And then for me, it's kind of like putting a design like in the vault. It's in the bank. It's like kind of in the bank. So for me, it's like 8 months later, I get to release a design that I've already like done all the work. I've stitched the sample and done the photos and created the pattern and all of that. So it's really good for both of us. And I think that if I can just have a moment to muse on that, I think a lot of small business partnerships are that way. I think small businesses, we just have to get really, really creative at sort of holding each other up and building partnerships and working on projects together. But I think the real foundation of that is we don't really have the same level of, oh gosh, I don't want to be like negative or anything, but we don't have the same level of essentially corporate greed. And so when you're in a small business, it's like, you know what, you want to make enough to like pay the Trader Joe's bill and have a roof over your head. But I know I am never going to get, you know, abundantly crazy rich and have a house in the Bahamas or something, you know? And so I feel like actually, so I always feel like, oh, there's enough to go around. There's enough business, there's enough embroidery, there's enough everything to like go around. And so when someone comes to me and wants to partner, I'm like, yeah, let's partner. This is good for both of us. And I feel like I just think it's a unique part of small business, of the kind of small business living, is that these partnerships kind of allow two different small businesses to come together and lift each other up. I did my partnership with Yarn over the summer, and that was fantastic to like get to know a whole community of knitters like through my work. So that was really fun. So kind of my little, you know, I'll step down off of my soapbox now, but I just feel like it's one of the great things about small business is that we can partner with other small businesses and each of us are stronger for it. So, okay, what's up next? This, I didn't even know I was going to have this to share with you. I finished it literally last night at like 10 p.m. right before I went to bed. But this past November during the thank you sale, I released 3 new hoop kits. That was the Athenian Palmette, the Mirror Medallion, and the Scottish Rose. Now, when I'm designing hoop kits though, I try to design them in groups of 4, and it has to do with how the fabric is printed, because it basically has to do with how many motifs we get across a yard of fabric, and it reduces the how much I have to instead. How do I say this? Instead of having to buy, say, 100-yard minimum of one design only printed across 100 yards, I can actually print a single yard with 4 different designs, and then I basically am only having to buy 100 yards of the printed fabric instead of having to buy 400 yards. So it's a massive savings, which means I plot out my designs now, and now that I'm learning to do this, I didn't know to do this in the early days, but now I'm learning. And so I plot out my designs so that I do at least a group of 4 at a time. And so when I did that grouping that we released both the hoop kits and the cushion kits in November, the last one on the list was this fabulous little design. And I wasn't 100% certain it was going to work. I was like, I really hope this works. And I kind of had to do it on faith. But I just finished it last night and I'm so happy with it. This is a new design. This will release in the new year. And this one, let me see if I can get close for you. This one we're going to call Georgian Rose. My working title was Canterbury Leaves, but the funny thing is when you see the design printed without any of the stitching done, it looks like leaves. But as soon as I started getting the stitching in and winding these little stitches around and things like that, it didn't look like leaves anymore. So I decided to really pull off of this rose motif in the middle. And it's a neo-Gothic design. The neo-Gothic period started in around the 1700s, ran all the way up until, through the Victorian age, really, and was a really beautiful period of architecture and art and decorative art specifically. And I really love how kind of like graceful and lacy this design is. And I wanted a totally new colorway, and I also wanted to challenge myself and do something that did not have yellow in it or gold in it. So here we go. I was so happy with the result. When I finished last night, I'm like, oh, it's so awesome. It's so awesome. Now this one has a lot of satin stitch. And what's really cool is the satin stitch follows the curve. This is a very curvy design. I hope I'm getting that. I'm still learning my new camera, so forgive me if I haven't got that all up there, right? So, and then it's punctuated with just a teeny weeny tiny bit of back stitch and then French knots. And then the little shapes that were fleur-de-lis out here, I used Byzantine fishbone to make those look to kind of stand up and give them a little bit more texture and make them look more like little kind of flower buds. So anyways, and so I'm working on the cushion version of it right now. And you can see I have not gotten far. I actually was so excited. I put that down at 10 p.m. last night. Then I'm like, I got to do just a little section on this. So I got just a teeny weeny amount done. But it will also be a cushion cover, which I think will be really cool. So that's coming along, and I'll be releasing that. I'll probably release that like in January or maybe even early February, because I'm going to the Sew Expo, the Sewing and Stitchery Exposition that's held at the Washington State Fairgrounds in March. I think it's March like 5th through 8th, if I remember right. Maybe I have those dates wrong. Don't quote me on those dates. But it's first week of March. And that is the largest craft fair in the entire west of the Mississippi. It's huge. They have over 400 vendors, which is a lot. And so Pamela, my workshop assistant, and I are going to go up and just like hang out and meet new people and sell Avlea kits and all the things. And so that's the one that I'm going to, I want to have that ready to go for that. So it'll be kind of our newest, latest thing. And it'll be really wonderful to be able to drive to a trade show, because I am always that person showing up with like trade show in a suitcase because it's so expensive to ship to trade shows. And so this will only be the second time in my entire 26-year textile career where I've gotten to drive to a trade show, because they just don't hold a lot of trade shows like this. And this isn't really a trade show, it's a craft show. So this is definitely retail, but it could be fun. So if you're in the area, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, ooh, you might want to look into it, because it's sewing and stitching and there are classes, and I'm actually teaching a drawn thread hem class while I'm there one day. I think it's going to be super fun. In fact, I kind of think I'm going to have trouble just like parking my fanny at the Avlea booth. I'm going to want to like go out and wander. So anyways, I think it's going to be really fun. And I'm just excited to see like 400 other like small businesses that are doing sewing and stitching stuff. So anyways, so I think that's everything on the list. Yeah, that's everything on the list. I have got to get a new, once I finish the Canterbury leaves, I'll be starting up on a new cross stitch design. So watch Instagram for pics in progress. I'm getting better at figuring out how to do the Instagram reels, and I'm trying to show up every time I stitch something. I'm finally figuring out how to like stitch the videos together. I know. I'm old. What can I say? It just takes me a while. So the scrolled leaves video is the reel on scrolled leaves is really cool. And I'm trying to do that now with more and more designs so that you can see me start the design. You can see the design stitched in process, and then you can see it like finally displayed. So more and more I'll be doing that for every design, and that's on the Instagram reels. So I think that's it. I just want to say thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone who subscribed, all of you supporting this work. I mean, I could not do this without you. Like, literally could not do this without you. I'd be sitting here, I don't know, printing off paper patterns and being totally overwhelmed by all the things I couldn't stitch. So I'm so grateful for you. And I just want to wish everyone a really, really wonderful holidays, whatever you're celebrating. I hope you have an awesome time and that you have some lovely, cozy winter days, maybe sipping some hot cocoa and stitching and listening to Christmas music or whatever holiday music you love. If you have a tree, if you have friends, whatever. I just am sending you so much love and joy for this season of winter and the holidays and all of this. And I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for being part of Avlea and part of my creative journey.